Hi, VincoreWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday, August 19th. Well, let's first start off talking about the tropical situation. We have a tropical storm in the Atlantic Ocean, Danny, and it could very well become the first hurricane of the Atlantic tropical season. We'll also take a look out in the Pacific, a couple of typhoons out there, and both of those can become super typhoons over the next couple of days. Here's the latest visible satellite image of Tropical Storm Danny from the Penn State EWAL site. Pretty good circulation pattern associated with this system right now. It's got sustained winds at 50 miles per hour, basically moving to the west at this time around 14 miles an hour. Here are the Windward and Leeward Islands on the eastern edge of the Caribbean. This looks like it'll encounter some dry air, and we'll show that in a moment. There's actually some dry air pushing from the east to the west off the African coast, Saharan desert dust type air mass moving into the Atlantic, and that could inhibit some of its strengthening possibilities over the next day or so. However, it could ultimately become the first hurricane of the Atlantic tropical season. We've had three tropical systems so far, A, B, and C. This is the fourth one, Danny, and this is really the first one that began as a wave off the western African coastline. The others were more homegrown type systems that developed not too far off the east coast of the U.S. Well, here's a map from earthnullschool.net. It shows the wind flow in the lower part of the atmosphere, and this also has the color scheme right in here for Saharan dust or Saharan desert air that again came off the African coastline and moved from the east to the west. And here's the circulation associated with Tropical Storm Danny right now. Again, a pretty good circulation pattern. It will, however, encounter some of this dry air over the next 24 hours or so. Despite that, there's some reason to believe that it will intensify, perhaps reaching hurricane status, and if that happens, that would be the first Atlantic hurricane of the season. The first three did not reach hurricane status, but again, the color scheme here shown by this particular website indicates where the dry air is that flows from the east to the west, from the Saharan desert right into the tropical part of the Atlantic. That is typically an inhibiting factor for tropical storm development. So we'll see if Danny survives this and it ultimately becomes the first Atlantic hurricane. Meanwhile, we can push all the way here into the Pacific Ocean on this particular map and look at a couple of typhoons right here. And here we go. It should set up right here. Let's go a little bit farther to the west. And again, we have some spinning action here. A couple of very strong typhoons. Very well, both of these, especially the second one here, could develop into a super typhoon. This first one is headed towards Taiwan. The next one could ultimately take a curvature type path, something like this, as it heads farther to the north and west and then starts to curve around in the northern Pacific Ocean. So certainly the tropics, both in the Atlantic and the Pacific, are quite active, which is not too unusual this time of the year. The Atlantic tropical season really gets underway in a normal season from mid-August on through September, peaking generally in the middle part of the month of September. Well, let's now take a look at a closer to home situation. Some of the computer forecast maps from last night's Zero-Z GFS model run put out by NOAA. We have some heavy rainfall headed for the I-95 corridor. Anywhere from D.C. to Philadelphia to New York City should very well experience some heavy rainfall over the next 2 or 3 days, perhaps 2 inches or more in many locations up and down the I-95 corridor. The culprit is a very slow-moving cool front, and it is supported by a very strong upper-level feature. This is the forecast map for this evening, a 24-hour forecast from last night's Zero-Z GFS model run for this evening, Wednesday evening. A deep trough at 500 millibars in the upper part of the atmosphere in the middle part of the country by later on this evening. Let's now jump ahead 24 hours. And this is the forecast map for tomorrow evening, Thursday evening. We can see that upper level feature taking on kind of a negative tilt here as it swings from the plains over the Great Lakes, and all of this will support upward motion in the Mid-Atlantic region over the next 48 hours or so. The threat for the heaviest rainfall Looks like it'll be Thursday into Friday, lingering a little bit later than that, perhaps right along the East Coast. But the threat for showers and thunderstorms really increases later today. Again, the most likely scenario for the heaviest rainfall will be Thursday into Friday. Well, now let's focus in on the surface maps from the GFS 0Z run. This is for this evening, and then we'll look 24 hours later, Thursday evening, and then 24 hours of that, the Friday evening. That upper level feature causing a strong surface low here by this evening across the western Great Lakes, and just very humid air throughout the eastern part, northeastern part of the country, basically south to southwest flow in the lower part of the atmosphere. High pressure pushing off the northeast coastline. That too is pumping in some moisture in the form of Atlantic moisture. So some showers and thunderstorms, certainly the threat for that will exist from midday right through the afternoon into the night. It'll be more of the scattered variety, but anybody that gets hit by a shower or thunderstorm, really any time over the next 48 hours, could see some heavy rainfall in a brief period of time. Well, let's now jump ahead 24 hours to tomorrow evening, Thursday evening. Again, this is the likeliest time for the heaviest rainfall. That low pressure area moves into eastern Canada, but a frontal system extends all the way towards the east coast, and this will be the prime time for some heavy showers and thunderstorms up and down the I-95 corridor later tomorrow, into tomorrow night, and even into the early part of the day on Friday. A very slow-moving frontal system will extend the time period for this rainfall, and that too will contribute to the likelihood for some heavy rain. Again, 2 or more inches possible anywhere along the big cities in the I-95 corridor between now and the weekend. Well, let's end up with a forecast map for Friday evening. Again, a very slow-moving frontal system. Notice as late as Friday evening, some green here depicted by the GFS model indicating some shower activity, lingering shower activity. That front will just stall out pretty much for a while along the East Coast. Hence, the threat for showers and thunderstorms will certainly continue into Friday, and